I stood alone at the defense table, hands trembling, staring down at the empty chair beside me. Richard's lawyer was already spreading documents across their side of the courtroom like a conquering army claiming territory. My husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, sat back in his tailored suit, arms crossed, wearing that smirk I'd seen 1,000 times before, the one that said he'd already won. "Your Honor," his attorney began, voice dripping with practiced confidence, "my client has been more than generous in this divorce. Mrs. Caldwell refuses to be reasonable. She refuses to accept reality. I wanted to speak. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt like it was closing. Richard leaned forward, just enough so I could see his face. He mouthed 2 words. "You lose." The gallery behind me was nearly empty. A few reporters, a clerk. No family. No friends. No one. Because Richard had made sure of that. 3 months earlier, everything had been different. Or maybe it hadn't. Maybe I'd just been too blind to see it. We were hosting a charity gala at our estate. 200 guests. Crystal chandeliers. A live orchestra. Richard was in his element, shaking hands, making jokes, playing the role of the beloved tech billionaire who cared about the community. I wore the dress he'd picked out, smiled when he introduced me, laughed at his stories, even though I'd heard them a dozen times. "Isn't she beautiful?" he said to a circle of investors, resting his hand on my lower back, my rock, my foundation. I believed him. That night, after everyone left, I found him in his office. The door was cracked open. I could hear his voice, low and intimate. "I know, baby. I know. Just a few more months. Once the merger goes through, I'll file. She won't see it coming." I froze in the hallway. "She signed the prenup years ago," he continued, laughing softly. "She gets nothing. I made sure of it. And by the time she figures it out, you and I will be in Monaco." I didn't move, didn't breathe. "She's sweet," he said, "but she's not smart, never has been." The woman on the other end said something I couldn't hear. Richard laughed again. "Trust me, this will be the easiest thing I've ever done." I didn't confront him that night. I didn't cry. I didn't even let him see my face. Instead, I went upstairs, sat on the edge of our bed, and I planned. But Richard was faster. 2 weeks later, I woke up to find my credit cards declined, my bank accounts frozen, my phone disconnected. When I asked him why, he didn't even look up from his breakfast. "You've been overspending," he said calmly. "I'm cutting you off until you learn some discipline." "Richard, I can't even buy groceries." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you became so reckless." He left for work. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my hands, realizing I had no money, no access, no proof of anything. He'd been planning this for months. The divorce papers arrived 3 days later, hand-delivered by a courier in a black suit. Richard didn't even come home that night. The papers were brutal, cold, clinical. He was offering me $50,000. That was it. After 12 years of marriage, no alimony, no assets, no property, just $50,000 and a signature line. I called him. "You can't do this," I said, voice shaking. "I already did. Richard, we built this together. I supported you when you had nothing. I gave up my career. I gave up everything. And I'm giving you $50,000, he said, voice flat. "Sign the papers, Julia. Don't make this harder than it has to be." "I won't sign." There was a long pause. Then he laughed. "Fine," he said. "Then I'll see you in court. And trust me, you don't want that." He hung up. I tried to find a lawyer. I called 15 firms, 20, 30. Every single one turned me down. Some were polite, some weren't. "We can't take your case, Mrs. Caldwell." "Why not?" "Conflict of interest." "What does that mean?" Silence. One lawyer finally told me the truth. "Your husband has retained half the divorce attorneys in the state," he said quietly. "The ones he hasn't retained, he's made it very clear he'll destroy if they take you on. I'm sorry, I really am, but I have a family to feed." Richard had locked me out, financially, legally, socially, and he knew it. The courtroom was cold the day the hearing began. I sat alone at my table. No briefcase, no files, no lawyer beside me. Richard's attorney stood and addressed the judge. "Your Honor, Mrs. Caldwell has had ample time to secure representation. Her refusal to do so is a delay tactic. We ask that this court move forward with the proceedings and accept the settlement as filed." The judge looked at me. "Mrs. Caldwell, do you have representation?" I stood slowly. "No, Your Honor." "Do you intend to represent yourself?" I don't know, Your Honor." Richard's lawyer smirked. "Your Honor, this is exactly what we anticipated. Mrs. Doe Caldwell is unprepared, uncooperative, and wasting the court's time." Richard leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head, grinning. The judge frowned. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm sympathetic to your situation, but this court cannot wait indefinitely. If you don't have counsel by the next hearing, I'll have no choice but to proceed without you." "I understand," I whispered. Richard's lawyer started packing his briefcase, like the case was already over. And that's when the courtroom doors opened. Everyone turned. A man walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, buzz-cut. He wore a dark suit, but the way he moved, steady, controlled, precise, told you everything you needed to know. Military. He didn't look at Richard, didn't look at the judge. He walked straight to me and set a hand on my shoulder. "Sorry I'm late." "Sis," he said quietly. I looked up at him, eyes wide. "Marcus?" I hadn't seen my brother in 4 years. Not since the falling out. Not since Richard convinced me my family was toxic, that they didn't understand our life, that I was better off without them. Richard's face went pale. Marcus pulled out the chair beside me and sat down. He opened a briefcase and laid out a stack of documents, each one labeled and tabbed with military precision. The judge raised an eyebrow. "And you are?" "Marcus Hale, Your Honor, United States Navy. I'm here as a witness and support for my sister." Richard's lawyer shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. He's not an attorney." "I'm not representing her," Marcus said calmly. "But I do have evidence relevant to this case. Evidence that Mr. Caldwell has been hiding." The judge leaned forward. "What kind of evidence?" Marcus slid a folder across the table toward the bench. "Financial records," he said. "Offshore accounts, shell companies, asset transfers made in the last 6 months, all of which were deliberately concealed from my sister and this court." Richard's lawyer grabbed the folder, flipping through it, face turning red. "Your Honor, this is—" "Let me see it," the judge said sharply. Marcus didn't move, didn't blink, just sat there, calm and solid, like a wall Richard had just run into at full speed. I looked at my brother, tears filling my eyes. "How did you—" "Later," he whispered. "Just trust me." Richard was whispering furiously to his lawyer now, face twisted in anger. The judge flipped through the documents, expression darkening with every page. "Mr. Caldwell she said slowly. Did you transfer $4 million into an account in the Cayman Islands 3 weeks before filing for divorce? Richard's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client. I asked him, the judge said coldly. Not you. Richard cleared his throat. That account is... It's a business account, Your Honor. Completely legal. A business account, the judge repeated. Under your mistress's name? The courtroom went silent. Richard's mouth opened. Closed. Marcus pulled out another document. Her name is Lauren Voss, he said. She's listed as a consultant for Mr. Caldwell's company, but the payments don't match any consulting work. They match the timeline of their affair and the timeline of his asset transfers. The judge's eyes were ice. Mr. Caldwell, you are under oath. Did you hide assets from this court? Richard's lawyer stood again. Your Honor, we need time to review. Sit down, the judge snapped. Richard's face was red now, sweating. Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding. You've lied to this court, the judge said. You've attempted to defraud your wife, and you've wasted my time. She looked at me. Mrs. Caldwell, I'm granting a continuance, and I'm freezing all of your husband's accounts pending a full financial investigation. Richard shot to his feet. You can't do that. I just did, the judge said. Sit down, Mr. Caldwell, or I'll hold you in contempt. Marcus didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just closed his briefcase and looked at Richard, and Richard looked away. We stepped out into the hallway. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. Marcus, I whispered. How did you? I got a call, he said, from someone who thought you might need help. Who? He nodded toward the elevator. The doors opened, and my mother stepped out. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 6 years. Richard had convinced me she was manipulative, controlling, that she didn't approve of our marriage because she didn't understand success. I believed him. I stopped calling, stopped visiting, and she let me go. But now she stood in front of me, older, grayer, but with the same sharp eyes I remembered. Hello, Julia, she said quietly. I couldn't speak. Marcus stepped aside. My mother walked up to me, looked me in the eyes, and said the words I didn't know I needed to hear. I never stopped watching. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Mom, not here, she said gently. Let's talk somewhere private. We sat in a small conference room down the hall. Marcus stood by the door. My mother sat across from me, hands folded on the table. I'm a lawyer, she said. I blinked. What? I went back to school after your father died, she said. Finished my degree. Passed the bar. I've been practicing family law for 5 years. I stared at her, stunned. You never told me. You wouldn't take my calls, she said simply. But I kept track of you. I knew what Richard was doing. I knew he was isolating you. And when Marcus told me about the divorce, I knew it was time. Why didn't you come sooner? Her face softened. Because you weren't ready, she said. And because I needed to build a case first. She opened her own briefcase and pulled out a file twice as thick as Marcus's. I've been investigating your husband for 2 years, she said. Every shell company, every mistress, every lie. I have communications, transactions, witness statements, and I have something Richard doesn't know about. What? She smiled. A prenup clause he forgot he signed. I read it 3 times before I understood. The prenup Richard had made me sign years ago, the one that said I'd get nothing, had a clause buried deep in the fine print. If Richard committed adultery, the prenup was void. and every asset became community property. "He cheated," I whispered. "He did," my mother said, "and I can prove it." The next hearing was 3 weeks later. This time, I didn't sit alone. Marcus sat on one side. My mother sat on the other, in a sharp suit, reading glasses perched on her nose. Files stacked in perfect order. Richard walked in with his lawyer and froze when he saw her. "Your Honor," my mother said, standing, "I'm Eleanor Hale. I'll be representing Mrs. Caldwell." Richard's lawyer looked like he'd been hit with a brick. "Your Honor, this is perfectly legal," my mother said coolly. "Shall we begin?" The next 2 hours were a masterclass in precision and control. My mother presented everything: bank records, emails, photos, testimony from employees who confirmed Richard's affair had been going on for over a year. Richard's lawyer tried to object, tried to deflect, tried to argue, but my mother didn't raise her voice once. She didn't need to. Every argument she made was airtight. Every piece of evidence was documented. Every question she asked backed Richard further into a corner. "Mr. Caldwell," she said calmly, "did you or did you not transfer assets into accounts controlled by Ms. Voss while still legally married to my client?" Those were business expenses." "Did you or did you not engage in an extramarital affair with Ms. Voss beginning in March of last year?" Richard's jaw clenched. "Answer the question, Mr. Caldwell," the judge said. "Yes," he bit out. My mother didn't smile. "Then, pursuant to Section 12, subsection C, of the prenuptial agreement you drafted, the agreement is void. All assets acquired during the marriage are now community property. My client is entitled to 50%. Richard's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, that clause was never intended." "It's in writing," the judge said, "and your client signed it. The prenup is void." Richard looked at me for the first time since the hearing started. His face was pale. His hands were shaking, and for the first time in 12 years, I didn't look away. The final settlement took 3 months to finalize. Richard fought. He appealed. He hired more lawyers. But my mother didn't stop. In the end, I walked away with half of everything: the house, the cars, the investments. Richard kept his company, but barely. The scandal destroyed his reputation. His investors pulled out. His mistress left him the moment the money dried up, and I started over. I'm sitting in my new apartment now. It's smaller than the estate, quieter, but it's mine. Marcus helped me move in. He didn't say much, just carried boxes and assembled furniture with the same calm efficiency he brought to that courtroom. My mother came by yesterday with groceries and a bottle of wine. We sat on the floor and talked until midnight. I apologized for the years I'd lost. She told me there was nothing to forgive. "You're here now," she said. "That's what matters." Richard sent me a message last week. Just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I didn't respond. I don't need his apology. I don't need his money. I don't need him at all. Because I have something he never gave me. I have my family back. I have my voice back. And I have myself back. If this story reminded you that strength doesn't always show up the way you expect, sometimes it shows up right on time, go ahead and hit that like button. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in Julia's position. And if you want more stories about justice, courage, and the people who refuse to stay silent, subscribe, because we've got plenty more where this came from.